Hi friends, I'm going to be doing a live chat with my friend Yely. We're going to be talking about grief and yoga and how yoga can help you on your grief journey. So let me just grab Yely really quick. I think I'm doing this right. All right, just give me just a second. There she is. All right, I think, here we go. Is that working? I'm hitting accept. Okay. It's not doing anything when I hit accept. Let me try that again.
Hey!
Hi, how
So good to see you, Kim. How you doing?
are you?
I'm very excited to finally talk to you and have this conversation to share with everybody.
Me?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay today. Today is like a pretty good grief day. How about you?
It's been a tough day.
Yeah,
It's been a tough day, and it's just been so many different type of grief in my experience. In the past 7 months, I have had many different type of losses, and it feels like it's just all too much at once.
yep,
So I haven't finished one grief when I have to start another one, and so I'm glad we're having this conversation because it's important to know something that I've learned is there is different types of grief for different type of scenarios.
definitely. Yeah, it's not included to someone passing away. It's a
Yes,
lot. Yeah, that's good.
totally.
Good to talk
Yes.
about that. Do you want an introduction to introduce yourself and I can do the same?
Sure, sure. So my name is Yely Staley, and I am a bilingual certified yoga and meditation teacher. I focus on mindfulness because I love how it has helped me to manage my level of anxiety. And so I love to be present and aware. And these type of practices have also helped me to acknowledge and appreciate the importance of self-care practices to give myself permission to rest, to restore, to recharge. I'm a type A perfectionist Virgo, so I'm always on the go and I don't rest until things are perfect. And I call that a condition. And I'm aware of my condition and I try my best to apply that quote that it says, give 80% of your best, and that 20% of excellent perfection is not worth it. So that's who I am. When it comes to the grieving topics, I don't know where to start. Personal relationship have been falling apart. Um, my dad passed away. Um, recently I have to say goodbye to my mother-in-law because she's getting joining a mental uh, facility for her condition. So it's just been a lot of grieving of letting go of what it was
Hmm,
and accepting what it is. And I think part of the grieving process for me and my experience is being to creating space to find myself, identify myself. We tend to identify so much with who we are, what we do, where we live, um, and it can be very ground shaking when the titles are removed, right? Whether you are a daughter, then you're not a daughter anymore. If you are a wife, you're not a wife anymore. If you are a mother, you're not a mother anymore. So it's just that part of our natural human tendencies to identify ourselves with a title and taking into the wrong mindset that everything will last forever, and then you take tomorrow for granted. And then at any moment, anything can change. You always heard that, and you're like, oh, it's just not going to happen to me. I'm too young for that, or whatever excuse might be. But yeah, so I think the grieving is being self-identity, accepting what is, um, recognizing all the emotions that go with the grieving process, the ups and downs, the different emotions that you feel, um, especially when you have a good day, that you're feeling at peace or a sense of joy, you're like, wait a second, I don't supposed to feel like this. And then, I don't know, it's just learning the whole process. Um, what else? Yeah, I think it's mainly the the allowing ourselves to know how it feels for you,
Hmm.
and giving your space to know yourself again.
Yes. I like that you touched on that identity part because it's kind of something that I'm struggling with right now. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Kim. I'm from Rhode Island. I've been teaching yoga 5 years and practicing for about 7 or 8. I mainly focus now more on like vinyasa, gentle and restorative. And I'm currently going through a grief yoga training. So, that's like another thing to explore in the next few months once I'm done with that training. So I lost both of my parents last year, 3 months apart. Um, it's just weird because being like 32 years old and I'm an orphan, like kind of feel like, oh, that's just for children. But I totally like feel like my world has been like ripped open, um, and feeling like a sense of lost and lack of identity now. Feel like I was like so strong before and like how I identified myself and felt going through the world, but now I kind of am in this place in my grief of feeling like it's become like my identity now, this grief. It takes up so much of my thought and so much of what I do all day. So it's just something I've been struggling with reflecting on a lot lately on how this I don't want it to be my identity forever, feeling this grief, and I know it's different for everybody, and the grief process is forever, but the heaviness isn't forever.
And I think that's something that part of the identity that you start to get to know yourself is to, for instance, for me, it's like since all this happened, I feel that sense of heaviness, that sense of deep, deep sadness that is not going away. It just changes the intensity.
Mhm.
And you have to be okay with, oh, this is now part of how I feel now, and there's nothing wrong with me about it. Before I never knew about what it was to grieve the loss of a parent, and now I do.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, Kim, you got to experience that in such a short moment, one after the other. I mean, I cannot even imagine. But I think accepting that grief is part of us now, and we just like anxiety is part of some people all the time.
Yeah.
It's matter of learning how to, and you have said this beautifully on your account. It's matter of recognizing what triggers it
Hmm.
and why it's being triggered, and what kind of internal work you got to do for that trigger not to be triggered. And if it is triggered, then be kind to yourself while it's being triggered. It requires, and I think this is where the yoga and meditation can be so beneficial, because it gives us the tool to become aware of ourselves, to acknowledge that what we think, what we feel, It's not our true self. It's not who we really are. I'm not angry. I feel angry, right? It's two
Yeah.
different things. So that creates a little bit more of room for you to navigate this without. It's almost like you're observing yourself going through the motions, and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna attach to that. I'm not gonna attach to it. I'm observing. I'm being kind to myself. I'm having a hard day today, instead of feeling upset or angry with yourself because you're feeling the way you're feeling. But to be honest, grieving takes so much energy for me, for in my experience. And meditation and yoga, as much as I've been a practitioner for almost 20 years, meditation and yoga was the last thing. They were not helping me in the way I would have thought they would help me. What really helped me in the beginning of my grief was the mindfulness part of practicing yoga and meditation. Sitting in meditation was almost like impossible in the beginning. Um, Going into my mat and move the body, even restorative, it was impossible for me in the beginning. What it helped me was to do mindful practices, and what that means for me is going for walks in nature alone, walking, sitting on a bench staring at the lake, journaling a lot. I think that I was doing that for the first 3 months of the grieving. Like sitting meditation for even 1 minute, it was impossible for me. Like I felt worse than being a beginner, because when I began meditating, I could sit for 5 minutes, no problem. I pushed through it. But with grieving, that was that was a different layer I have never experienced in my meditation practice. And I knew that it was nothing wrong with the practices. It was just too much at the time, and that's not what was working for me. So I'm curious to know how it was for you. The yoga itself and the meditation itself work for you, or do you also have to have a little break from it?
Yeah, so I kind of had a similar experience with my yoga and meditation, especially the meditation part. But with like the anticipatory grief, I had months before my parents passed that I knew they were going to pass. So I had times where, in the middle of caregiving, I had an hour just go and move on my mat. And that was the thing that kept me sane during those times of the anxiety that you feel with the anticipatory grief. But after my parents passed, meditation was like something I wanted nothing to do with. Just sitting there and being silent and being more open to the world around me made me so vulnerable. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Is like it just made me so vulnerable that I just didn't want to go there yet. It took me quite a few months to get to a point where it's like up to 5 minutes, and then now I can do up to like 20 minutes now. But that took months of little steps of going into. Oh, I just gave up when I couldn't do it long enough, and I just gave myself the grace to just be like, all right, that's good enough for today, and do it again. But the mindfulness for sure, I practiced that a lot in the beginning, with like being slower in my like morning routines, being more aware of like what I'm doing in the morning. Taking my time, like I'll drink tea in the morning, just taking my time and just enjoying that moment. So with those moments. But yeah, I had a very similar experience with the meditation yoga as you did.
And it's all very interesting because it kind of gets deeper into how much you can actually rely on these practices, and until what point there is some sort of limitation of how much they can actually help. And even though we were practicing some sort of shape or form of the yoga and meditation, it was not the traditional way of what we think is a practice of yoga and meditation, right?
Yeah,
Most people think yoga is, oh, let's do a vinyasa, or meditation is like just sit there and be a monk for 4 hours. But we were more into our mindfulness, and I think that tells you the level of the trauma uh, load of response of your nerve system, that was just too much. You need a moment to assimilate. And of course, you have the burst of crying and crying, and maybe in my case, when I'm sad, I just lose appetite, and I just couldn't even eat. I mean, like I say, it takes so much energy to be sad, and so you just have to be extremely compassionate and kind to yourself. Give yourself the space to feel what you feel, and hopefully you will have someone around or even your own awareness that you need to take care of yourself. So whether it's going for a walk, even if it is for 5 minutes, just to move your body, to just get your mind out of the situation, not to avoid or to push it away, but your mind can go into some dirt and dark cycles of what to shoot and the anger and the frustration and disappointments and the future that got stolen from you, so to speak. So you just got to be aware that you'll go there, but don't hang in there too much, you know?
Yeah, it's okay to like take that little time to yourself to just like kind of put it on a shelf and I'll deal with it later today or tomorrow, you know. We all need like a break from it for sure. It can get, like you said, really heavy. And I also wanted to mention in my meditation practice in the beginning, I cried so much. I never experienced that before, but in the beginning of my practice again, when I got into it, I cried. And still to this day, I still find my moments, depending on like I usually listen to guided meditation, so sometimes it can trigger different emotions in me.
Now, the meditations that you do are specifically for grieving, or it just could be any type of meditation?
Any type. I haven't,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Have you done grief specific meditations?
Well, um, let me give you a little bit of background so you know where this is coming from. So I was able to take only, and I'm very fortunate because I run my own business, but I decided to take 2 weeks off soon thereafter my dad passed away. And I can't even remember those 2 weeks. They're a blur. I don't remember anything about it, right? And I don't think I really, I mean, the first days and weeks of this type of loss, I think it's just for you just to kind of figure it out that this is happening, right? And so those 2 weeks, I really, they didn't do much at all for me. And, society really pushes you. You have to move on. You got to go back to work. You got to keep making money. You got to pay the bills. It's like nothing happened. And
Nope.
as nice as it will be to have a sabbatical to grieve, ooh, that would be nice. We don't have the luxury. I don't have the luxury to afford to disappear to feel my feelings because I need to work. So you kind of have to like put your strong suit and go out there and, you know, try like nothing happened because that's another thing. It's so personal. You don't want to be telling people all the time, I'm grieving, my dad died. Like, there is a time and place for things, but you have to deal with that while dealing with the normal life again. So I move on with my life, and I was like, I have my ups and downs, and I just kind of make stories in my head to make myself feel better. And I do see a therapist once a month, and it's just been amazing. And she mentioned the tapping. I don't know if you're familiar with that technique, the tapping.
I've been hearing about that a lot lately, actually.
And I was like, well, maybe okay, whatever, and I kind of pushed it away. But I discovered this app where, and I subscribed to the annual because I found it so amazing. So anyway, this was recently. I'm talking like a week ago. I go into the app and I just start doing my tapping about other themes, and there was one about grief, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do this just to see what happened. The tapping wasn't even started. You have to rate your emotion, your feeling, usually in tapping in the beginning. So when you're done with the tapping, usually it goes a little lower. So they rate emotions and feelings from 1 to 10, 10 being extreme, 1 be barely anything. And when they asked me to rate my grief from 1 to 10, I was like, do they have more than 10? Because literally 10 didn't even feel like the right amount. I felt it. So I rate 10, and the tapping started, and I was an open river. It wasn't even and this was like a week ago. And I was thinking, I'm done with grieving. I'm fine. I'm feeling great. But this tapping made me realize there is a lot out there that I still haven't made space for it.
Yep.
And it's hard to make space for it when you have to work, especially if you are, an entrepreneur, have your own business. And so anyway, I'm saying this because you might feel and trick yourself that you're okay, and then things like this happen, like your meditations and me and my tapping, and then it's like a hose like open up,
Yeah.
and you're like, where is this coming from? I thought I was okay, and it is what it is because I believe we are energy beings, and every time we have an emotion or a situation or a experience that really feels, it really gets deeper into your, I don't know, subconscious and DNA and affects your entire body, and it takes time to process it. So I've been doing sound healings and energy healings and, being kind to myself. So yeah, it's a process. So this year, my word is healing. It's a process, and I'm being kind to myself.
I love that. I hadn't thought of a word for this year. I feel like I did earlier this year, but I forget what it was now. But it had something to do with healing too. Um, but that grief yoga, you had showed me the book, Healing Through Yoga for Paul Dennison. And so I got the book and then I got the email to do the grief yoga. And the grief yoga is like totally different than what I thought it was going to be. Um, it's not like the traditional yoga poses. There's a lot in there that is, but there's a lot that's not. But it's meant to bring your emotions forward for you to actually feel it. So we've been taking a couple classes. We do a live meet every week, twice a week. And, they'll usually do like an hour long class. And that want to say like triggers your grief. It does, but in a good way. Like I felt a lot of progress when I was like holding a lot of my grief in. I didn't want to feel it, but those poses or techniques you really brought that out of me. Like, oh, I didn't even realize I was holding on to that much grief, that much anger that I didn't even, you know.
Yeah, I'm happy that you're doing the training because that's something I want to do in the future is just to do a yoga teacher training about grief. I think it's something that inevitable all humans are going to experience, sadly, in life and in this culture that we are in this side of the world. People feel awkward, uncomfortable in talking about things that are so natural, right? I always say people are so excited when you announce that someone is pregnant or when somebody gets engaged. People are like, all over you and following you, but somebody die and people just like looking the other way or they don't even know what to say, or somebody gets a divorce or separation,
Yep.
and instead of saying that takes courage, I'm here, whatever you need, they're just the judgment, and it's just we just need to normalize more of the good and the bad
Yeah.
because we're all experiencing that. And I think that's where there is a delicate line with toxic positivity that I experienced a lot in the beginning of my grief. I was sick and tired of people telling me things that did not feel right to say. So for anyone who's watching this, if you know somebody who's grieving or somebody is into the anticipatory grieving, please don't try to fix the feeling. Let them feel the feeling. Create a space for the feeling. Honor the feeling. That's the best way you can help somebody. Do not make the feeling be less than what it is, and don't make the feeling feel like it shouldn't be there because you have to own what is there. I'm sure you have heard the quote that says, "In order to heal, you have to feel."
Yep.
And so I think we need to acknowledge the feeling and give a space for people to feel their feelings.
Yeah. Because if they don't go through it, that grief process, if people try to suppress it, they're just going to feel that later on, probably even worse later on in life. It's going to come up no matter what. If they suppress it or not, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it could be people become angry, People
Yeah.
become aggressive. You start developing some, your body, it's obviously no imbalance, and emotions can have some impact in our health and our immune system, our organs, and we start being unease. We are creating dis-ease. So it's, yeah, I mean, you have to recognize that grieving is part of a human experience, and as celebrated as it is to be happy and content all the time, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous. Because if you are happy and um, joyful all the time, something's wrong with you, literally. You can be positive, you can be peaceful, you can be calm, you can be enjoying a moment, but then you can go back into a more reflective state. You can be more nostalgic. I mean, having all the emotion is what's normal. But trying to be on one spectrum of that emotion all the time, it negates your human condition. And I think that's the problem with society. We have go to one extreme to the other. So I'm here to tell you, if you're not feeling happy and content all the time, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just the way it is. And you just got to be aware. You just got to be acknowledged about that. Have the tools to help you at least to go into the balance. Like I always say, if you're happy, you're here. If you're sad, you're here. Mindfulness, yoga, and meditation help you to go into that center. I feel like if you were to tell me, yeah, you rather feel happy and content all the time or you want to feel calm and peaceful, I will tell you I want to feel calm and peaceful because right there in the middle, I'm able to feel more at center, more, what's the word? Like I'm not in one extreme of an emotion. I'm like right in balance. And I think being aware of that, when you are content, then you get appreciation for that moment in your life. And when you are sad, you give permission to feel sad, but then you have the tools to come back to that center.
Yes. Yes. The tools, to figure out, it's obviously different for everybody, but self-care is like my biggest advice. For everybody. This is,
You and I are always talking about self-care. I mean, because we experience it, that's what helps us to go into that balance. And in a young world where we idealize being busy and people brag about how busy the schedule is, I'm starting to feel sorry for people like that because they don't prioritize themselves and their health, and it's going to suffer sooner or later. So I'd rather create little practices every day to maintain momentum and
yeah.
not going all the way to 100 miles per hour and then hit the brake at the stop sign and then start all over again, right? You want to go for a nice ride.
Yeah.
You don't want to be stopping and going, stopping and going.
I lived life for so many years, and I started that self care journey like maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago when the pandemic happened, and I started incorporating it. And I'm so happy I did because it's helped me continue that and not feel that burnout, especially with grief and um, feeling those emotions. You can definitely burn out really quick with all
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah, totally. Yeah. I am just so grateful and happy that we connected, that we got to know each other. Um, I'm just, I feel sorry that we're going through this, but at the same time, it's just been a really beautiful journey to meet people who are going through the same, and they are open to share and they're open to keep it real and to help people find their own way to process their grief. It takes a lot of courage, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you, and you too as well. It's been really comforting having somebody uh, to talk with about those hard things that other people can't relate to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm really
especially in our young age, right? Because people think grief is just for seniors or whatever, but it can happen at any moment, at any time.
absolutely. Yep. Is there anything else that you wanted to, any offer advice for anybody on their grief journey that you think that they might not think about that might help them?
The only advice I have for anyone who is or is going to or has been grieving is be kind to yourself and take care of yourself. I'm not going to tell you do this, do that, because this is your journey. It's grieving is so personal. For what works for me might not work for you, but if you're interested in what I have done and what have worked for me, please send me a message, send Kim a message. We will be more than happy to share what we have done. By no means we are experts, by no means we know all the answers. We are in our own journey, and this journey is just the beginning.
Yep.
This this takes years, if not a lifetime, to be okay with that feeling and managing the intensity of it. And whenever you have those days, allow you to have those days. And express people around you, hey, I'm having a tough day today because I'm grieving. And then people will understand. And whoever doesn't, don't even sweat about it.
Ed. All right. Is there any last things you want to say? Or that was the last thing you wanted to say about the grief yoga?
Yeah, try, experiment, give yourself kindness, give yourself space to explore a way to feel your feeling. Please don't hide it. Don't avoid it. That actually increases your emotions. Feel free to reach out to me or Kim with any questions. We both offer classes. Um, Kim is getting trained on grief for yoga for grieving, and so we're both here, open and willing to share. And um, yeah, that's it, I guess.
Yes. And you can live your yoga off the mat. It doesn't have to be physical at all. You could go months, even years without getting on your mat to do the work, experience the yoga.
Yeah, I honestly did not did any asana practice for about almost 4 months after my dad passed. And when I went back to my yoga mat, probably 5 minutes of my own stretching, I mean, for me, it felt like I was just drained, too much energy. I mean, it takes energy to be sad. It takes a lot of energy to be sad. That's something I realized and I learned. It takes a lot of energy. And that's what it's important to have a lot of self-care.
Oh,
So I was lucky to have nature, and I ground myself. I walked barefoot. I went to the beach to just, replenish myself. I have a dog. I spend a lot of time with my dog. My meal times were all messed up. I ate when I was hungry. If I
yep.
wasn't hungry, I was not going to force myself to eat. If you don't want to eat anything solid, just soups and tea. You just gotta, take a shower,
Yeah.
take a bath, sleep all day, stay in bed, stay in PJ, whatever you gotta do, you gotta do.
It doesn't have to be a lot of things.
Yeah, less is more when you're grieving.
Absolutely, especially early grief. It is hard to do anything. Just getting out of bed is just an
Mm, yeah,
accomplishment. Just those little baby steps will get you, on a path where you can start being more comfortable with your grief and it, um, yeah, more comfortable with your grief is what I want to say.
I like that. You every day you do something that makes you and help you to feel comfortable with your grief. I like that. I'll
Absolutely.
take that with me every day. I'll
Me
think
too.
of you, Kim, as like, oh, I need to be comfortable with this. There's no other way. This is the new guest in my house.
Yeah, yeah.
The unwanted guest, so you never gotta go away. You just gotta make yourself comfortable.
Well, it's really nice to talk with you finally and, face to face instead of just the DMs and everything. But I really like this talk a lot. And I think that, a lot of people will feel more comfortable with what they're feeling. And, if you have any questions or if you just want something to talk to, we're both here for you and we're both open to
Yeah,
meet them.
You're not alone on this. Trust me. Many humans before our time and many humans in the future are going to go through this. So um, just be kind. I keep saying it. Be kind, be kind, be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
It's
All
been
right.
an honor, Kim. Thank you so
Thank
much for having me.
you for doing this with me. I appreciate it. All right, we'll talk again soon. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.